I'm glad you found your way back to Mr. Lee Teaches YouTube channel. I'm Stuart Lee, and today is episode officially number 1 of my new series. We're calling it Instructional Strategies Monday until we come up with a better name for it. But we're going to be discussing instructional strategies today, and today we're going to focus on flipped classrooms or flipped learning. It's been around for a while, but not a lot of people are really comfortable with it. But the people who do use it find it super easy and super rewarding, and it really changes the dynamic in their classroom, and it changes the way they teach. So first, let's talk about what is flipped learning or flipped lessons or flipped classroom or flipped, okay? It's a pedagogical approach. It's not a trick or a tool or go to this website and it'll explain how to do it and then you're good to go. It's a mindset, it's a philosophy, it's a strategy. That's why we're talking about it today. It's basically, in the simplest terms, is taking the schoolwork and sending it home and taking the homework and doing it in school. So what I mean by that is the teacher takes the emphasis off of the teacher and it puts it on the student. So flipped lessons, flipped learning is a student-centered approach. It sends home in an individualized setting. So you don't have to do it at home, but we'll talk about more about that later. It sends home the learning focus. So if you're doing multiplication tables or metaphors or gravity in physics or physical science or something, then it sends that, the part that you would lecture about, it sends that to an individual location. So at their home, typically you send it home for homework, and it's usually 10 to 15 minute video, but it doesn't have to be a video. It can be anything that will accomplish them learning the material on their own. And then most of the time you'll have them summarize it just as like a spot check. And then more than likely, more appropriately, you can have them come up with some questions that they would then ask in class the next day, where the expert you are. And so you can jump straight into answering their questions, facilitating their learning instead of leading their learning. Does that make sense? I hope so. So the direct instruction moves from the group environment to the individual environment, which makes it a learner-centered approach. Now, beyond that, if you choose to use videos, and I'm going to focus on videos in this talk because videos make it super simple. You can use YouTube videos that already exist. So if you don't want to be on camera or you don't want to learn how to make videos or you just don't feel comfortable doing that, there's millions of YouTube videos out there, I promise you. If your school doesn't allow access to YouTube, then you could use TeacherTube. You could use TEDx. Well, not so much TEDx, but TED-Ed. I'm sorry. There's lots of other educational video platforms out there. Discovery has great videos on all kinds of topics, not just animals and science-y stuff. There's all kinds of resources at Discovery Education that you could use in a flipped classroom or in any classroom, really. That's a whole nother discussion on Discovery Education. But if you use the videos, you're speaking the language of students. If you think about what your students are into nowadays, they're not on Facebook anymore unless it's Facebook Live. They're not, sending texting each other, but they're texting each other's pictures and videos. They're on Twitter some, but they're really on Instagram doing pictures and videos. They're on Snapchat doing pictures and videos. They're on all these other platforms that let them do pictures and videos. So if you present them with a video to watch where they can pause it, rewind it, watch something over again if they missed it, you're really differentiating, allowing the student to differentiate the learning and dig into it as deep or as shallow as they need to for them to grasp the concepts. So that's a great reason to try flipped classrooms. Let me give you a couple reasons not to try a flipped classroom, okay? If you read about it or you watched this video and you said, hey, that sounds like a good idea, let's just do it. That's not a really good reason to flip a classroom because you're not going to be prepared. You really need to put some thought process into this. It's not going to make your job easier right away. So a little asterisk next to that. It will make your job easier in the long run once you become used to flipped lessons, once you get established and you kind of wrap your head around the whole idea of it, it will make you a more effective teacher, and it can make your job easier for sure. But right away, one reason to try flipped classrooms is not because it's going to make your life easier. You're going to have to put in a little bit of extra work to kind of get into it. Creating a modern classroom. People say, oh, I have a modern classroom. I have 21st century classroom. I have 21st century learners. Flipped lessons does not automatically make you the poster child for modern classroom, okay? It's a good method. It's a good strategy. It is a good teaching philosophy. But unless you buy into the concept and understand the concept and work it effectively, it's not just something you're going to do on a whim. If you think you're going to be a cutting edge teacher by doing a flipped lesson, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not. Flipped has been around for, I don't know, probably 10 years, at least 6 that I know of. I went to a conference about 6 years ago and I saw my first session on flipped classrooms or flipped lessons. And so you're not going to be cutting edge. It's, you know, once something's been around for 3 or 4 years, it's not cutting edge anymore. Now it might be in your school and it might be in your district, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's something good to use. It's one of the tools in our tool bag. It's not necessarily a go-to. It's not the newest thing. It's not the craze anymore, but it is a very effective, very doable, and can be very easy way to reach your students better. And probably the number one thing that I think some teachers, I know not you because you're watching this video, but some teachers think, well, if I flip my lesson, I can just record myself once doing my lecture, send it home, they have to learn it, they come back, they'll do a worksheet, and I don't have to be a good teacher anymore. I just have to be good once on video, and then I can use that over and over again. That is absolutely not what flipped classroom is, and if you do that, you will not be successful. I can promise you that. So, a few reasons why not to do flipped classroom. Let's talk about some good things that come out of flipped classroom. Let's talk about how it benefits you, how it benefits your students, and how it benefits your parents as well. You're going to know your students better if you flip your lesson because you're sending that instruction home, and they go home and they pore over it. And if it takes them 15 minutes and they got it, then it takes them 15 minutes and they got it. And they come back to school and you're ready to go into that facilitative mode where you guys are actually putting hands on and practicing and doing instead of having to sit there and take notes and try to do the learning process. You're putting into application what they've already learned. And if your students need a little bit more help or they struggle in certain areas, then they have that time because they're doing the learning individually. They can go back and rewind the video. They can go and Google search other resources, or you can provide them with other resources if they need to, along with your video, just kind of like I do with the below in the description of my videos, further reading, further research, so they can learn at their own pace. It may take somebody, 15 minutes, like I said, but it may take another person 30 minutes. It may take another one 45 minutes. And it may take somebody else having their parents sit down with them and watch your lesson, and the parent learns and the student learns, and the parent can then help the student as well. So you're really having the possibility of bringing the parents into the learning environment, which is nothing but a great thing. One, it makes your classroom much more transparent, so teachers know exactly what you're doing, how you teach, what your approach is, how you are in the classroom, which most parents don't ever get to see that true picture of the teacher in the classroom working with students. So that's great. Also, your administration could watch it too, so they could see you in the classroom without having to do an observation, because everything changes when an administrator walks into a classroom. But if you put a video up, then people get a good snapshot without that culture change, without everybody going, oh, I wonder why they're here. I don't know why they're here. You know what I'm talking about. But if the student's busy, say you get a student who plays football and is in art classes and takes martial arts after school, that's a busy student. And so giving them worksheets or some sort of an assignment to do at home based on the lecture at school, that could take hours and hours and hours. I know when my son got to, I think it was 7th grade, and started hitting the honors classes pretty hard, and his workload started picking up, she was complaining constantly that he had so much homework to do, and he was in the band and on the drum line and had practice for like 2 hours after school every day, and really didn't have time for a job, and really didn't have time to hang out with friends during the week or even do much other than come home, homework, shower, supper, bed, rinse and repeat. And so doing this where the student takes, 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, and then it's done. And the long process, the hands-on, the application, the part where they might have some real questions that need real answers is going to happen at the classroom, where you're there to help them, walk them through, and give them that expert guidance. Student-teacher interaction is going to increase greatly because, like I said, this is a facilitative process. And so you're facilitating the learning. You're sending the learning home with them, let's say, and then when they come in, you're just a facilitator. They should know or have a good idea of what you want them to know. And you may need to tweak that a little bit. I'm not saying that they're going to go home, watch the video, and become the expert that you want them to be. But what I am saying is they'll go home and they'll get the gist. They'll get the concept. They'll get that background knowledge that takes a while in the classroom to get across to the students. And so when they come in your classroom, it's time to go hands-on, apply what you know. We're going to work on this project in small groups. I'm going to walk around between the groups and make sure that you're on the right track. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And then we're going to go to the library and do some more research based on what we learned last night, that sort of thing. So the kids are immediately engaged when they come into the classroom, and you're there as their helper and not as the person in front telling them what they need to know while they're in the classroom. Like I said, if you work in small groups, it's great. It increases student-to-student interactions, because if I watch the same video that you watch, then when I get to the class tomorrow and I still have a question, chances are I'm going to look at my neighbor and say, hey, remember in the video where Miss Smith said so-and-so? Did you understand that? Oh, that's what she meant. Okay, great. So the students will do that because they know what's coming, and they know, hey, I've got a kind of an idea. Let me just ask my buddy, know what I'm talking about, so that way when the teacher comes around, I don't have questions for the teacher. You know how students are. They don't like to ask questions. And so this will help students to interact with each other in an educational setting, not a social setting, so to speak. Speaking of which, classroom management becomes very nice when you're the facilitator in the classroom and not the leader in the classroom, because there's nothing worse than trying to teach and manage students at the same time. Now, if I'm just the facilitator, hold on, Johnny, I'll answer your question in a second. I need to go deal with this. So that gives you that flexibility, because you don't have to interrupt yourself to deal with little pop-up hotspots in the classroom of talking or discipline issues or anything like that. You can walk around helping students. Plus, with you moving around so freely, that helps with classroom management as well. Plus, the students come in, there's no downtime. There's no get out your notebooks, let's start taking notes. Okay, why aren't we taking notes? And you immediately start losing students' attention spans. You come in, okay, this is what we're gonna do today. I should have learned this last night. Does anybody have any questions? You answer 3 or 4 questions, or however many there are. And then you immediately dive into that application side of things, which we all know grabs students' attention and keeps them motivated in the classroom. And if a student is motivated to learn, if a student is engaged in the lesson, they're much less likely to be a classroom management issue. Also, if you know that you're going to be absent, doing a flipped lesson in the classroom is an awesome idea. You can, if I know I'm going to be at a wedding next Friday, I can record my lesson today, just like I would teach it, leave it for the substitute to project, or if you, a lot of times, districts will run out of money, and so other teachers have to cover your class. And so you can leave that for them. Whoever is in your classroom as the adult, please press play for this video, have the students complete the assignment. And then you're teaching the students. It's still a lecture type situation possibly, but they know what to expect if you've flipped your class before. So they know it's going to be a 15-minute video where you're explaining the concept, and then there's going to be some sort of activity, summary activity, come up with 3 questions based on what you learned, break up into small groups, discuss the lesson that you just watched, and write a paragraph on how it could be applied to yesterday's lesson. There's all kinds of ways to twist it, but it's still you teaching the way you want to teach, in the manner that you want to teach, and the content that you want to teach. And so when you get back from that wedding, all of a sudden your students haven't missed a day. Or at worst, you need to review for 15 minutes to make sure that everybody's on the same page, instead of having to completely just All right, that day is gone. I'm gonna have to redo it. That puts me a day behind in my pacing guides, you know, that kind of thing. That's really the sales pitch for a flipped classroom. This Friday, I'm gonna post resources on and how to use some of the resources to flip a lesson. So I'm a huge fan of Screencast-O-Matic to record with. You get 15 minutes of recording for free. Now it does put a little watermark and says, you know, created by Screencast-O-Matic or whatever in the bottom of your video, but it's free. Who cares, right? If you want to be a stickler about it, you could pay for it. You get a couple extra perks. You can unlimited cloud storage, unlimited video creation, you know, length and all that kind of stuff. But really, if you're going to send home a video, 10 to 15 minutes tops, absolutely tops, or you're going to lose the students. A student is not going to go home and watch a 45-minute video of you droning on and on. They don't want to sit in class and listen to 45 minutes of you droning on and on. They're not going to do it at home. I can promise you that. I don't care who the students are. But that's a good way to make your videos. You can also do, if you have Smartboard software allows you to record your writing on the board plus your voice. Your face would not be in it. Screencast-O-Matic will let you put your face in it too. And it's been shown through some research that if you see who's talking, even if it's in a little corner of the screen, that it becomes more personal for the viewer. So that's usually a good thing. But if you don't want to be on camera, it works just fine if you're not, you know, if your face isn't on camera. Other tools you can use is you can do voiceover annotations on PowerPoints. If you have an Elmo or some sort of document camera, some of those will do recordings as well. There's tons of tools out there that can work. This Friday, I'm going to talk about Screencast-O-Matic because I really like it and it lends itself to a lot of different applications. Plus, it's free, and I love to talk about free product or free tools that you can use in your classroom. But in that same video this coming Friday, I'll kind of go through like a demo lesson and show you how it would kind of work. As far as using, you know, making the video, putting it into a tool like Edpuzzle or TED-Ed. Like I said earlier, both of those will let you ask questions about the video. Edpuzzle will let you ask questions during the video. It'll pause the video, ask a question, and they have to get the question right in order for it to move on. TED-Ed will let you select from questions that they have pre-generated, or you can write your own questions and those come up at the end of the video and you get a report based off of the students logging in, putting in their name and stuff like that. So you actually get to see who said what, who answered what, and how many students got right or wrong. So you know what areas you need to cover when you get into the classroom, or you kind of have a general idea of where the students are after doing the flipped lesson. So I'll talk about all of those in my Friday video. I hope this gave you some information in a nutshell of a flipped lesson, why you should try it. It's a wonderful thing. It really is. Students really enjoy it. It's a much more engaging format to teach with, and it allows you to do more of that hands-on, more of that application side of things. And like I said, it's very student-centered. It puts the learning in the students' hands, and it takes some of that lecture droning. I don't know many people who like to sit up in front of a classroom and just lecture and lecture and lecture. That's not fun to me. Working with the students, getting down there on their level, putting my hands on things along with them, projects, papers, anything like that, where you're actually physically manipulating things, whether it's a pencil or typing a paper or building a project or doing a science fair, any of that kind of stuff, to me as a teacher is much more enjoyable than lecturing, and the students feel the same way. So as I have said before, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like down below. A little thumbs up will help me know that what I'm doing is appreciated by you, and I'll keep doing it. If you really like what I'm doing, how about hitting the subscribe button, and you'll be notified every time I release a new video. I'm shooting for Mondays and Fridays at this point, Mondays being these type instructional strategies and Fridays being my more how-to tutorial type videos. Always leave a comment down below and let me know if you like this, what you liked about it, if you didn't like it, what you didn't like about it, and maybe what you'd like to hear about in the future. So I know what kind of videos to make, because I make these videos for you. I know the information. I'm trying to help teachers out there make their lessons better, more engaging, and make the profession a better place to be. Until next time, thanks for watching.